everybody! In this lesson we are going to talk about various types of watercolors, and we're going to just show you the difference between them, talk about the ones that I like and the ones I don't like so much. And I'll give you a demonstration of each of them so that you can make your own decision and use the type of watercolors you like. The first thing I want to tell you is if you have a set of watercolors in your house and you really don't want to buy any more, then that is completely fine. Do not feel that you have to go out and buy a set of watercolors. This is a praying, just 8 different colors. It's washable. It's something that 4-year-olds can use. And you know what? They work pretty well. I've used them in several lessons just to show you that you don't need a whole bunch of expensive tube paints. Now, if you actually want to get really serious about watercolors, then you're probably going to want to eventually own some of these tube paints and have a palette, but it's not necessary for this course. So this is like probably the cheapest along with these cake watercolors, and they work really well. So just use what you have, and please do not feel like you need to go out and get everything that I have on this table, because we will not be using all of them. I will be using the tube watercolor paints for all these lessons simply because I love the rich pigments that I get from them, and you need to see quality paints in this. But like I said, use what you have. So let's go ahead and talk about, since I've got this one open, these are actually called pan watercolors or semi-moist. And I have a praying set, and then I have a Crayola set. And these are really decent watercolors. I especially like the praying ones. The Crayola ones are okay, but I use these more for the preschool courses. And I think I use these in the Playful Pets Portraits course, as well as maybe 1 or 2 of the mixing with the master's watercolors. So these are your pan or semi-moist watercolors. Another common one that you've seen are the Watercolor Cakes. And this is, I believe, from Michael's. It has a lot of different colors, so you don't have to worry about mixing them. And then this one was one from Hobby Lobby. It's got all these different cake colors that you just have to unscrew the little, that one is stuck together, so I can't show you the other colors, but you can unscrew them and then screw them back, and they come in a little neat little carrying thing for if you wanted to do watercolors while you're traveling or on a nature walk or something like that. I don't love these as much as I love the semi-moist, because these just don't have as much color pigment in them. So you tend to have to add a lot more water to them, which could also make your watercolor paper wrinkle up. So, but if this is what you have, these can work for you. You're just going to need to make sure you add a lot more pigment, a lot more of this color to your brush, and less water. Then we have my least favorite of all, watercolor crayons. These are Staedtler. I have some Neo color, and I bought these years and years ago because I was taking a course and the teacher really loved them, and she just sang their praises to high heaven, so I thought I had to get some, and turns out I didn't like them at all. So, but it's kind of cool. If you like this kind of watercolor, then feel free to use these. You can actually use the cover as your palette, mix the colors here, or use them like crayons, color directly on your paper, and then add some water to it to move the color around. And I actually don't have watercolor pencils. These are Derwent Inktense pencils, but they kind of have the same purpose as watercolor. These are just much deeper, more intense color, and it's not actually watercolor pigments, it's ink pigments in these pencils. But I wanted just to give you an idea of how these work, so I'll show you that in a minute. But if you've done any of my other courses, you know that the tube paints are my favorite. Like I said, they give me a richer, deeper pigment of color. I don't have to use as much paint. I don't have to use as much water. It's kind of hard to see all this with my beautiful table, isn't it? And then I just have this cheap little set of gouache, which is an opaque watercolor. And we used these for mixing with the Masters 2. We did some gouache paintings after the style of Matisse and Albrecht Dürer, who used gouache paints. So I'm going to pull out a piece of paper and give you a little bit of a demonstration of each of these. And I'm going to lay this right here. All right, so I am going to start out with, I've got these cake, actually I like this little set better than the other. Let's use this one. And I am going to just squirt it down with a little water bottle that I have here, because that helps activate the pigments a little better. And my brush is wet. So you can see it's got, let me put it in just a bit. It's got a decent amount of pigment in it. The less water I use, the darker my color will be. But it does help to initially spray your watercolor cakes down. All right, let's move to the semi-moist. And once again, let me spray it down. I'm going to clean my brush, but I'm also going to stay in the same color family just so that you can see. I'm going to use this little aqua right here. So look at how much richer the semi-moist is. I mean, I didn't have to dig in to these paints to get that rich, intense color. So it's pretty cool. This is the Crayola set, and I don't have as much water on my brush, so now you can see how much darker and more intense the color can be with less water on your brush. So this is with more water, this is with less, this is with more water, and this is with less. I clean my brush again, and I've got the Inktense. Pretend that these are watercolor pencils. They're not, but they work basically the same. So if you like to draw and it's easier for you to draw than paint, you could probably draw on what you want. And you just add water. And see how neat that is? And like I said, this is not watercolor, this is ink. So you actually, if you want to use watercolor pencils, make sure that they are watercolors. But if you want to try the Inktense, they are made by Derwent. And I like them a lot. I'm going to clean my brush again. And I'm going to pull out my watercolor crayon. And I guess I used a bit of a heavy hand to put that on there. You probably don't need to color that much, especially if you want a lighter looking piece. That's actually pretty, isn't it? Maybe I'll play around with this and like them even more, but for right now, I just want to show you this. What I don't really care for is you can see the waxy texture left in here, and you don't really want that for a flat wash. And if you wanted this grainy look, you could actually put some salt in your watercolors, and we'll talk about that later. So let me go ahead and grab a pen. These are our watercolor cakes. They're basically dry. These are our pan watercolors, and they are semi-moist. We're going to pretend that this color right here is from a watercolor pencil. It's not really, but use your imagination with me, okay? And then this right here is watercolor crayons. All right, so now I've got this little porcelain dish as a palette, because I'm going to be using just a tiny bit of gouache. You don't need much. That's more than you need. And then this is watercolor. This is my cerulean blue. So I put way too much, even though that's just a drop, a little dollop. That's way more than I needed. Move it into the screenshot for you. I just love, because I love acrylics, and I am very heavy-handed, and I just feel like I can get a lot more of the thickness from either these tube watercolors or the gouache. The gouache is amazing. And I just feel like I can get more thickness and richness from the tubes. So that one is tube watercolor. And then this one is gouache, and it's almost like right in between watercolor and acrylics. And I really like it too. So for this course, you can actually use, if you only have gouache, you can actually use that. And if you don't have it, you don't need to go get any. I really want you to feel like you can use what you have and just adapt if you need to when we learn different techniques. So this is tube watercolors. And this is gouache. And obviously they're not all the same shades, but they are all in the same color family of beautiful sky blue. And in our next lesson, we're going to talk about tools that you will need for your watercolor painting.